Buddhist sermon on Poya Day is delivered by Venerable Maharagama Ananda Thera, Sandavimala Sanasuna, Valigampitiya, Pokunuvita.
නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස. Dear devotees and Dhamma friends, today you are going to listen to the Undua Poya Dhamma sermon delivered based on one of the discourses preached by the Buddha. Before we move on to today's Dhamma sermon, let us briefly examine what is the importance of this Undua Poya Day, because it is very important to understand the significance of this Poya Day. Although there are several points to distinguish this Undua Poya from the other Poya days, so let us examine three of them very briefly. Dear devotees, it is said that in the Buddhist literature, the very first visit of the Arahant Theri Sangamitta to this island had happened in a Undua Poya Day. Therefore, the Undua Poya is very important. And also the establishment of the Bhikkhuni Sasana, or in English we call it dispensation of the Buddhist nuns in Sri Lanka, was first established on Undua Poya Day. Therefore, it is also very important. And also, apart from that, the planting of the Jayasri Maha Bodhi tree, to which we call the sacred Bodhi tree of the Gautama Buddha, in Anuradhapura, Mahamyuna Ujana, after bringing it from India respectfully, had occurred in a Undua Poya Day. Therefore, dear devotees and Dhamma friends, we understand how important the Undua Poya Day is. Okay. Having noticed that, having examined the importance of the Undua Poya Day, let us move on to the today's Dhamma sermon, which is based on a certain Dhamma discourse delivered by the Buddha in Majjhima Nikaya, specifically the Opamma Vagga. Dhamma friends, in this Opamma Vagga, we find discourses which describes the divisions of similes. So therefore, we come across so many similes, but very important similes, thought-provoking similes. Okay, for today's Dhamma sermon, Dhamma friends, I selected one of the discourses we find in the Opamma Vagga, which is named as Kakachupama Sutta. In English we call the simile of the saw. We know what is a saw. It is a tool we use to dissect, we use to cut wood. So what is the significance of this simile, the simile of the saw, the Kakachupama Sutta? Dhamma friends, there's a story running behind this discourse, and in this story we find very important Dhamma facts. Therefore, let's see what is the importance of this Dhamma sermon and the Dhamma discourse. According to the content of the discourse, Dhamma friends, there lived a bhikkhu called Moliya Pagguna in Buddha's time, who was associating overmuch with bhikkhunis. That means he was associating, he was talking, and he was doing things with the bhikkhunis overmuch, apart from his limit. So therefore, this bhikkhu was associating overmuch with bhikkhunis, so much so that if any bhikkhu spoke dispraise of those bhikkhunis or the Buddhist nuns in his presence, what happened, devotees, he would become angry and displeased, and even would make a case of it, and the vice versa. That means he was fond of bhikkhunis, and if anyone were to talk ill of them, he would grow angry. That is the meaning. Actually, Dhamma friends, this is a very negative tendency in a Buddhist monk. Therefore, the other monks complained of him to the Buddha regarding his behavior. Then the Buddha, having noticed that, the Buddha called this monk to him, and he admonished this venerable Molya Paguna. And in admonishing this monk, Buddha preached this discourse. Therefore, let's see what is the importance of this discourse, Dhamma friends. So, in admonishing this monk, the Buddha says, the Buddha spoke to this venerable Molya Paguna and said, Molya Paguna, if anyone speaks dispraise of those bhikkhunis in your presence, you should abandon any desires and any thoughts based on the household life. And herein, you have to train yourself in this way. In which way? You should think, my mind will be unaffected, and I shall utter no evil words. I shall abide compassionate for his welfare. The person, and with a mind of loving kindness without inner hate. These are the things that you should cultivate in your character. The Buddha preached. In other words, the Buddha preached this venerable Molya Paguna that you should try to keep your mind unaffected despite all the things that they tell to your loved ones. Right? Then you should train yourself. I shall utter no evil words, and I shall abide compassionate towards any other, and with a mind of loving kindness, and with inner hate. These are the things you should cultivate in your character, Buddha said to the venerable Molya Paguna. Dhamma friends, then you might think, what is the significance of this story to our life? After admonishing this venerable Molya Paguna, the Buddha relates a beautiful story. Although this story looks something very irrelevant or something very not very deep, but Dhamma friends, if you listen to this story, at the end of the story you will surely understand the significance of this story. So this story, the Buddha related this story to illustrate what is the significance of patience. How should we train our mind to become calm and quiet despite all the bad things the other people would utter to you? The Buddha related this story like this, Dhamma friends. The Buddha said, in the advent of the Buddha in that particular city, there lived a housewife or the mistress called Vedehika. Her name was Vedehika. She was a mistress, owner of a house. And also, she had a good reputation. People tend to call her that Mistress Vedehika is very gentle. And Mistress Vedehika is very meek. And she is very peaceful. So, based on her positive qualities, people tend to call her like that. So, there was a good reputation of her. And also, Dhamma friends, this Mistress Vedehika had a very good housemaid called Kali. Her name was Kali. This Kali also was a clever, nimble, and her work was neat. Therefore, this housewife, this mistress, liked her very much because of his work. Then one day, this housemaid Kali thought like this. She thought, my mistress is very gentle, my mistress is very meek, and my mistress is very peaceful. There's a good reputation of my mistress all over this city. So I have this doubt in my mind. What is this doubt? So, Dhamma friends, she thought to herself, while my mistress does not show anger, is it nevertheless actually present in her, that anger, or is it absent? What is this question, Dhamma friends? She thought, outwardly, my mistress does not show any anger. But does it mean that anger is not present in her, or she is not showing it to others? This is one of the doubts she came across. And also she thought, or else, is it just because my work is neat that my mistress shows no anger, though it is actually present in her? Then again she thought, I think it is because my good work, because I am working hard here, that my mistress does not scold me. She does not show anger to me. Is it really the reason, or there could be any other reason? Then this maid Kali, Dhamma friends, wanted to test it. Then what did she do? One day, she purposefully got up late. Normally we know, Dhamma friends, if there's a maid or any worker in a house, it is a must to wake up early. They should wake up early before they are masters. So, unlike the other days, this housemaid Kali purposefully got up late one day just to test her mistress. Then what happened, Dhamma friends? Then having observed that this housemaid Kali got up late, this mistress Vedehika called the Kali, "Hey Kali." Then she replied, "What is it, madam?" Then again this mistress said, "What is the matter that you gets up so late, unlike the other days?" Then this Kali replied, "Nothing is the matter, madam." This is the reply. Then she got angry. Then she scolded this her maid, "You wicked girl." She was angry, told that you are a wicked girl, and she expressed her anger through scolding. She just called. That means she expressed her displeasure through some facial expressions, and that was that. Then this Kali again thought, so it's better if I think it's better if I test my mistress a little more, even beyond that level. Then the next day, what did this mistress, the housemaid, do? She got up even late. She got up a little more late than the other day. Then what happened? Then in the same way, the mistress asked her the reason for getting up so late. Then in giving the answer, there's no special reason, madam, to this mistress. Then what was the reply from this mistress? She told again some displeasure. She expressed some displeasure, and she spoke this time not only a facial expressions, Dhamma friends. She spoke words in displeasure. That means she scolded this housemaid. Then this housemaid Kali again thought like this: I think it's better to test my mistress even further. Then for the third time, Dhamma friends, what did she do? She woke up even more later than the before. Then what happened? Having observed that this mistress is waking up very late and she is not proper in her work, this mistress got very angry. What did she do, Dhamma friends? She took a rolling pin and gave Kali, her maid, a blow on the head and cut her head. And having undergone this negative repercussion, Dhamma friends, this maid Kali, with a bleeding head, the Buddha said, went out shouting to her neighbors, saying, "See, ladies, this is the gentle lady's work that you know. See, ladies, this is the meek lady's work. See, ladies, this is a peaceful lady's work." Then she shouted out all these bad things she had undergone just because of her mistress to the neighbors. Then what happened, Dhamma friends? The Buddha said, then later, this unlike the previous expression, unlike the previous impression the housewife Vedehika had in the eyes of the citizens, there arose a negative reputation, a bad report of the mistress Vedehika in the city. People tend to call her, Mistress Vedehika is very rough. Mistress Vedehika is violent, and the Mistress Vedehika is merciless. So, from this story, what is the thing, what is the importance of this story to our life, Dhamma friends? Having related this story, the Buddha said, because this is the nature of the human life. Sometimes you might see that apparently there are people in the society who look very peaceful, who look very calm and quiet, until they meet with a reason to show their anger. Therefore, the Buddha said, because then, Dhamma friends, the Buddha explained to what extent we should practice patience. The patience is very important. Then the Buddha said, because even if bandits were to torture you savagely, dissecting your limb by limb with a two-handled saw, he who gave rise to a mind of hate towards them would not be carrying out my teaching. Dhamma friends, can you imagine to what extent, to what level we should practice this characteristic of patience? The patience has no limits. Sometimes we tend to call in the society, there should be a limit for everything. Therefore, there should be a limit for my patience. And after a certain limit, people tend to behave very violently. But according to Buddhism, Dhamma friends, there is no limit for patience, the Buddha says. Then the Buddha advised further to his bhikkhus. So to monks, there are some bhikkhus who are extremely gentle, and there are some bhikkhus who are extremely meek, and there are some bhikkhus who are extremely peaceful, so long as disagreeable causes of speech do not touch him. And also, but it is when disagreeable causes of speech touch him that it can be understood whether that monk is really kind and gentle and peaceful. Dhamma friends, what do you think? Don't you come across such people in your day-to-day life? For an instance, think that you know a particular person who is very calm and quiet, who is very peaceful, who talks very gently to others. But there could be some instances, upon arousing his anger by others, he would behave very violently. What does that mean, Dhamma friends? This characteristic of anger, this negative characteristic of anger, sometimes it lay dormant in our mind. It lay very inactive in our mind, as far as the mind is concerned, but it behaves like that only a limited range of time, Dhamma friends. Because when a time arises, when a particular moment arises where you should show anger, they would come up with their anger. Then only you see the anger in them. This is the nature of human mind. The Buddha says that there are three main roots of unwholesome deeds in our mind. What are they? In Pali we call raga, dvesha, moha. Raga is sensual desire, dvesha is anger, moha is ignorance. But in this discourse, Dhamma friends, we focused our mind only to this negative characteristic of anger. We saw how this Mistress Vedehika, although she had a good reputation as a very gentle, as a very meek and very peaceful housewife or a mistress in the city, upon arousing of her anger by her maid Kali, she had to show the anger which lied dormant, which lied latent in her mind. Therefore, the Buddha advises his disciples, they may be lay disciples or the clergy, we have to practice loving kindness. Then only we can eradicate the hatred or the anger, not at once, but little by little. So this is a story which the Buddha took the saw as a simile. So therefore, even in our recent past, Dhamma friends, we heard how a particular citizen of Sri Lanka was tortured to death in another country. upon the anger of a mob. They didn't have any patience. Therefore, this man was tortured to death brutally. This is the human nature of the mind, Dhamma friends, because they didn't have patience. So, unlike some other religions, the Buddha says in the Buddhism, if you are a true follower of Buddhism, there's no limit for your patience. There cannot be a limit for your patience. If you really, as the Buddha related, because even if a bandit were to torture you savagely, just imagine a person comes to you and he torture you savagely, dissecting your limb by limb with a two-handed saw. Just imagine, Dhamma friends, what amount of pain that you would undergo by facing that. But the Buddha says, even in the face of this kind of torturing, if you give away, if you cannot control your mind, if you cannot control your anger and harm that particular person, therefore, if you are doing so, you are not a follower of the Buddha. You are not carrying away my advice. So, having said that, Dhamma friends, I think now you are in a position to understand the significance of this Dhamma sermon, how important the patience is to us. I am not going to extend this Dhamma sermon any further, Dhamma friends. Therefore, realize this fact and practice loving kindness. Try to eradicate your anger little by little and try to achieve the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Therefore, Dhamma friends, winding up this Dhamma sermon, let us transfer all the merits that we have accrued. Myself by preaching the Dhamma and yourselves by hearing the Dhamma, all the kusala kamma, all the merits that we have accrued by listening and preaching this Dhamma, may it be transferred to all the deities, all the celestial beings, all the divinity who protect this country, who protect this Dhamma dispensation, the Buddha Sasana, and may they rejoice upon being transferred this merit, and may they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. And also, let us transfer all the merits that we have accrued by listening to this Dhamma to all our departed relatives and all the fallen war heroes who sacrificed their life, limb and liberty to the territorial integrity of this country. And also, Dhamma friends, let us rejoice in this all these accrued kusala kamma, all the skillful deeds, and let us rejoice in this kusala kamma, and let us attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana no sooner that we realize this Buddha's teaching. And may all the people be free from sorrow and pain. Akasattha cha bhummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu sasanang. Akasattha cha bhummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu desanang. Akasattha cha bhummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu tvang sada. May all the beings be free from sorrow and pain. Namo Buddhaya.
Buddhist sermon on Poya Day was delivered by Venerable Maharagama Ananda Thera, Sandavimala Sanasuna, Valigampitiya, Pokunu Vita.